The world never plays fair. No matter how honest you are, someone is always willing to betray you. No matter how talented you become, someone less qualified but more cunning can steal your opportunities. That is the raw reality. Many will break down, blame fate, and play the victim. But those who survive and rise to the top understand that a hidden force silently governs this world. I call it strategic intelligence. Strategic intelligence is not born from dogmatic textbooks. It is forged through betrayal, humiliation, and defeat. While others argue, you quietly gather information. While others react in anger, you calculate. While they drown in passing emotions, you plan for the future. Most people are playing checkers, moving on instinct and short-term impulse. You are about to play chess, where every move is calculated 10 steps ahead. Before we dive deep, let me be clear. This knowledge is for protection, not destruction. Use it to build a fortress of self-defense, not to harm the innocent. The goal is to understand the game, not to become the villain. Over 500 years ago, in the turbulent city of Florence, Niccolò Machiavelli stripped away society's polite masks to write The Prince, a handbook of power banned for centuries. The reality of this world is simple. The strongest person is not the one with the most power, but the one who is hardest to manipulate. Today, we will delve into Machiavelli's realistic worldview through 6 lessons to help you build a psychological shield and reclaim your strategic autonomy. Open your mind and let us begin. 1. Calculated opacity. Machiavelli famously wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, but few experience what you really are." In today's social media era, we are encouraged to live authentically, sharing every thought, emotion, goal, and vulnerability online. We think complete transparency is a sign of sincerity, but through Machiavelli's lens, it is tactical suicide. When you become too readable, you hand those around you a detailed roadmap of your weaknesses, fears, and psychological triggers. A manipulator only needs a glimpse of it to know exactly which buttons to push. Sharp minds understand the value of opacity. They never lay bare their plans or show their trump cards. They maintain a calculated mystery. Machiavelli pointed out that those who speak too much invite ruin. In the political negotiations of the Renaissance, a single word could save a nation. But it could also be a death sentence if it revealed too much. Today is no different. We fear silence. When a conversation falls silent, we feel awkward and try to fill the void by talking. We share our plans, complain about hardships, or gossip just to break the ice. But the wise know silence is an incredibly powerful lever. When you say less than necessary, your words automatically carry more weight. Conversely, talking too much reveals insecurity, a need for validation, and a lack of self-control. Silence is also an excellent tool for gathering intelligence. When you stay quiet and listen, the other person feels an invisible pressure. To fill the void, they will talk more, and in doing so, accidentally expose their true thoughts, insecurities, and secrets. Learn to share information selectively and master silence. When someone asks about your goals, you don't need to give them a detailed breakdown. Answer generally but politely. In meetings or negotiations, be the last to speak, after listening to everyone else's views. When faced with a difficult question or a provocation, pause for 3 to 5 seconds and look them in the eye before answering. That pause completely shifts the power dynamic in your favor. Opacity and silence are not tools of deceit. They are a psychological shield that helps you protect your energy and remain in control. The first lesson is clear. When they cannot read you, they lose their advantage. 2. The principle of detachment. There is a psychological rule that very few recognize. The more you need something, the more power it holds over you. If you desperately need validation, others can control your emotions with a simple compliment or criticism. If you desperately need a relationship, you will tolerate behavior you would normally find unacceptable. If you desperately need a job, you will find it impossible to say no, even when treated unfairly. The greater your need, the smaller your freedom. This is why Machiavelli viewed the world through a deeply realistic lens. He understood that power does not belong to the loudest, the strongest, or the nicest. It belongs to the one who is least dependent. Observe any negotiation. Who holds the leverage? The person who desperately needs to sign the contract today, or the person who can calmly walk away? The one who needs the deal less usually controls the game. This is the true essence of detachment. It is not about being cold or living like a machine. It does not mean you stop loving, caring, or having ambition. Detachment is simply the ability to maintain composure even when you want something intensely. You still have goals, dreams, and loved ones, but your self-worth is not tied to obtaining them. When you master this, you become virtually untouchable. Others cannot bribe you with praise, control you with rejection, or threaten you with loss, because the anchor you rely on is no longer outside. It is within. The second lesson concludes, when needs no longer control you, you regain the power of choice. 3. Adaptive persona. In the late 16th century, during Japan's chaotic civil wars, Tokugawa Ieyasu chose a unique strategy. He bowed and served loyally under Oda Nobunaga and later under Toyotomi Hideyoshi. His rivals dismissed him as weak and lacking ambition. They were wrong. Behind that submissive mask, Ieyasu quietly built his army, accumulated wealth, and patiently waited. When Hideyoshi died and the ruling coalition fractured, Ieyasu struck the decisive blow at the Battle of Sekigahara, unifying Japan and founding a shogunate that ruled for over 250 years. He won not by flexing his muscles, but by concealing his ambition until the perfect moment. This is exactly what Machiavelli meant when he wrote, "A prince must know how to act as both the lion and the fox. The lion cannot defend himself against traps. The fox cannot defend himself against wolves. Be a fox to spot the traps and a lion to scare the wolves." The social world is complex. You need flexible masks. When facing a stronger opponent, direct confrontation is suicide. Use a harmless mask. Be humble, listen, and even pretend to comply to hide your strength. This is not deceit. It is strategic intelligence. You adapt to your environment without sacrificing your core values. Water shapes itself to its vessel but remains water. The third lesson establishes, when the opponent cannot predict you, you are always one step ahead. 4. Pragmatic realism. Perhaps the passage that best reflects Machiavelli's pragmatism is in chapter 15 of The Prince. The gulf between how one should live and how one does live is so wide that a man who neglects what is actually done for what should be done learns the way to self-destruction rather than self-preservation. Many of us view the world through rose-colored glasses. We want to believe everyone is good-natured and that if we treat others well, they will reciprocate. We project our ideals onto others, only to end up disappointed, betrayed, and deeply hurt. Machiavelli teaches us to cultivate pragmatic realism. See people and the world exactly as they are, not as you wish them to be. Human nature is primarily driven by self-interest, safety, fear, and greed. Once you accept this reality, you will no longer feel bitter or resentful. When a colleague competes against you for a promotion, or when a friend acts out of self-preservation. From this realism, sharp minds develop a relentless focus on outcomes. They do not waste time on moral debates or proving themselves right. While the phrase, "the end justifies the means," is often misattributed to Machiavelli, his true philosophy is that in the real world, results are the ultimate metric of any action. Most people waste energy trying to win trivial arguments to protect their ego. The wise person asks a different question before acting. What is the ultimate outcome I want to achieve here? If your goal is to get a project done, arguing with your boss to prove them wrong is useless. Adapting and playing along is the pragmatic choice. If your goal is to have peace, fighting with a rude stranger to protect your dignity is foolish. When you prioritize results, your ego shrinks. You stop reacting to provocations and refuse to waste time on moral dramas. You evaluate people by their actions, not their promises, and focus solely on what works. The fourth lesson teaches, when you see the world as it is, you fall into fewer traps. 5. Calculated cruelty versus false kindness. In 1997, Apple was on the brink of bankruptcy, just 90 days away from running out of cash. When Steve Jobs returned to lead his former company, he faced utter chaos. Dozens of unfinished projects, hundreds of failing products, and a workforce operating in a fog of confusion. Steve Jobs did not choose to be the nice boss who tried to please everyone. Instead, he executed a campaign of calculated severity. He eliminated nearly 70% of Apple's projects, laying off thousands of employees in a matter of weeks. To those affected, it felt incredibly cruel. But look at the outcome. That ruthless reduction allowed Apple to focus all its remaining resources on just 4 core products. It saved the company from collapse, preserved the jobs of the remaining tens of thousands of employees, and paved the way for the iMac, iPod, and iPhone. Had Jobs chosen false kindness, trying to keep everyone happy and avoid short-term pain, Apple would have gone under, and everyone would have lost their jobs. Machiavelli asked the classic question, is it better to be loved or feared? In the real world, the answer is about respecting boundaries and understanding consequences. Steve Jobs' decisive severity saved an empire. It was a painful but necessary decision. In contrast, the leniency of a weak leader is what actually sows the seeds of collective ruin. Many people make the mistake of false kindness in their daily lives. You agree to every demand. You endure disrespect to avoid conflict, thinking you are being nice. But unconditional kindness without boundaries only breeds contempt. You turn yourself into a doormat. True respect is not born from blind people-pleasing. It is born when others know that crossing your boundaries carries real consequences. Be ready to establish steel boundaries. If someone crosses your line, let them face the consequences of their actions. A moment of severity early on is the medicine that protects a relationship in the long run. Kindness without boundaries is self-sabotage. The fifth lesson is the steel boundary. When there are clear boundaries, others are forced to respect you. 6. Mental sovereignty. In Machiavelli's philosophy, 2 concepts always go hand in hand. Fortuna, fate or luck, and virtù, competence, courage, and inner strength. Machiavelli compared fortuna to a raging river. When it floods, it sweeps away houses and destroys fields, and no one can stand against it. But that does not mean we are helpless. During dry seasons, wise and capable people build dikes and dams, so that when the floods do arrive, the waters can be diverted and controlled. Virtù is this capacity for self-mastery, preparation, and the inner strength to handle life's unpredictable currents. Machiavelli's final lesson is the cultivation of mental sovereignty, a state of complete psychological self-rule. Many spend their lives relying on external factors. They seek others' approval to feel valued, wait for a lucky break to change their fortunes, and blame fate or circumstances when they fail. They allow the river of fortune to sweep them away without resistance. In contrast, a sharp mind always places the locus of control within. You cannot control economic recessions, but you can control upgrading your skills. You cannot control others' negative attitudes, but you completely control your reaction. You build your financial reserves, strengthen your body, expand your knowledge, and nurture high-quality relationships. When you possess a solid foundation of mental sovereignty, built on competence and emotional self-mastery, you stop fearing the storms of fate. No matter how the river of life fluctuates, You remain the master of your own path. The sixth lesson builds your strongest anchor. When the anchor is within, life depends less on circumstances. Conclusion. Journey toward strategic autonomy. When hearing Machiavelli's pragmatic philosophies, many immediately picture a devious, cunning schemer ready to trample others. But that is a shallow misunderstanding. Real strategic wisdom is not about plotting against others to seize power. It is about training yourself to become a completely self-sovereign individual, mastering your own game and your own life. Let's review the core framework of today's 6 lessons. When you master silence, you prevent others from reading you and stripping away your leverage. When you practice detachment, you refuse to let your needs dictate your choices. When you adopt an adaptive persona, you keep others guessing, ensuring you remain one step ahead. When you maintain pragmatic realism, you see the world as it is, avoiding sweet but dangerous traps. When you apply calculated severity, you establish steel boundaries so your kindness is actually respected. And when you build mental sovereignty, you place the anchor within, making your life independent of external circumstances. As Carl Jung famously said, a person cannot become whole without integrating their shadow. The fascinating thing is that Carl Jung and Niccolò Machiavelli traveled entirely different paths, only to meet at the exact same point. Machiavelli observed external power, Jung mapped internal power. Yet both realized that an individual becomes most dangerous, in the most positive, self-sovereign sense, when they truly understand themselves. Not when they attempt to destroy their shadow, but when they learn to control and integrate it. When you master your shadow, you can use your persona flexibly without losing your true self. When you recognize the projections of others, you are no longer driven by unconscious needs. This is the path of individuation, where you place your anchor firmly within and author your own destiny. Remember, the world will always try to keep you small, compliant, and predictable so you are easier to manage. Deciding to shed your innocence, sharpen your mind, and claim your autonomy is the first step to reclaiming your life. Do not let others write the script for your life. Take the pen, master the game, and build your own fortress. In the next video on your screen, we will explore the most subtle psychological manipulation mechanisms in daily life and how to break them. If you want to continue this journey toward strategic self-mastery with Psychoul, subscribe and leave your thoughts below. See you on the next journey.